Hey everybody! Just yesterday in the evening I received these archetype cards by Caroline Myss. I hope that's how she's pronounced, I have no idea. And to use it for some personal work as well as probably some group work that I'm planning to do in the near future. But anyway, as soon as I opened it, I thought it would be fun to kind of follow the system that she's using in her work, which is choosing those 12 main archetypes that are called sacred contracts. And the way she explains it is that, which I don't necessarily agree with, that before birth you agree to have those 12 main archetypes that will govern your life in a way, or be the most active in your life. I read some reviews, for example, of her book, The Sacred Contracts, and some people who read it say that it's based on the birth chart, on your astrological wheel, stuff like that. So I don't know how that works exactly. I'm definitely not a person who believes in reincarnation and that kind of shit. So yeah, the way I see it is just a fun exercise to get to know myself better just by seeing what I'm picking and why. So anyway, I only have this this small guidebook. I don't have the Sacred Contracts. I never read that book, so I have no idea how the system works more in depth. So this is just my play and with the system, and I thought that it might be fun for some of you guys as well, because I know that pretty much everybody has this deck, and I haven't seen anybody posting any videos or posts about choosing those 12 archetypes for yourself. So I'm wondering if nobody's doing it or nobody's sharing it. But anyway, the way this is set up, according to Caroline, you have those 4 archetypes that everybody has present in their life, and that's the victim, the child, which I chose a child orphan. You do have a few different kinds of children to choose from, the saboteur, and the prostitute. And I think this is fair enough, honestly, because yeah, we do have to kind of react to those not necessarily archetypes, but yeah, that's another thing that I forgot to mention, that I think this deck, it's not really archetypes. I mean, a lot of them are, but some of them are too specialized, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, an engineer, or I don't remember, but there's a lot of those super specialized ones. Networker, for example. Angel is kind of weird in this context anyway. Alchemist, by the way, covers the archetype of a wizard, magician, all this kind of shit, where normally you would have this umbrella term of wise old man, basically being all those. So advocate, this is another kind of child, bully, beggar, avenger. As you can see, there's a lot of cards, archetype cards. Oh, there's the engineer, by the way. That's Don Juan. This is very specific. That just could be, more general, more an actual archetype, which is an umbrella term for a lot of things that fall into its category, if you know what I mean. But anyway, this is what this is. I think this was created in such a way, at least that's my suspicion, to serve the work that Caroline is doing, which what she's doing is what? She's a medical intuitive, whatever that means. It does sound pretty fucking sketchy to me personally. But yeah, so this is just like a deck of cards for me as well, at least of like a bunch of different roles in society that you can play. And it's kind of cool to like be able to analyze that, what roles you play, and what light and shadow attributes come with those roles, basically. So that's how I am viewing the cards anyway. So yeah, these are the 4 ones that everybody has present in themselves. And as I said, I think this is fair enough. Honestly, we all have to like stand somewhere, for example, and decide how we want to interact with the victim. Not necessarily archetype, again, it's more like a victim dynamic maybe. So yeah. Then we have the prostitute, and I do like this because this has to do a lot to do with our morality, our ethics, in the sense of selling ourselves. This is how it's worded in the little book. Anyway, let me just read it for you because I think this was written kind of neatly. Okay, so prostitute engages lessons in the sale or negotiation of your integrity or spirit based on fears of physical and material survival or for financial gain. So yeah, just based off of this, like everyone has to deal with this kind of shit. We all have those dilemmas where you're wondering if you would rather agree to something even though it does not 100% agree with your ethics, just because it would make your life easier in some aspect. So we do deal with this on a daily basis pretty much. So, but the prostitute archetype, I think, goes much deeper than just this. But yeah, anyway, then we have the saboteur, that as well everybody has to fucking deal with, sadly. And this pretty much describes it. It highlights your fear of self-empowerment and the changes it would bring to your life. And yeah, everybody has to deal with this fear for themselves and decide whether you want to succumb to it and allow it to rule over your life, basically, or to live, whether to succumb to this or live an empowered life. And then the child, there are a few types of children. Let me just, yeah, there's child divine, child eternal, child magical, child nature, child orphan, child wounded. So based on those descriptions, I decided to choose the child orphan. And for me, this is because I was never like actually an orphan, just to make it clear, but I do have some of those characteristics of how do I talk about this? It's basically about like having to grow up faster than you should as a child, I think, and having to basically deal with your life on your own and be responsible sooner than you should. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And for me, there's also this element of not feeling as if I'm being a part of any family, of any group of people. This is wider than just family dynamics, I think. I always feel like I'm somewhere in between, on an intersection of any given groups, and there is no single group that I like truly feel a part of, including like my extended family. So yeah, this is pretty interesting for me, and just by choosing this kind of child that I think corresponds the most with who I am as a person at this moment in life, it was pretty eye-opening, because I can now analyze why I chose this card and what it really means for me, and how and if I want to change it, and if so, then in what way. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I so apart from those 4, like you do have you're supposed to choose 12 in total. So those 4 are like mandatory to choose, and then you choose another 8 ones. And the way you can go about this, she gives you some questions that you can answer in order, like journal about the archetypes that you chose, for example, to like make sure that it's actually an archetype that's in some way dominant in your life, or whether it's just like wishful thinking, for example. So some of the questions that she proposes here to like make you think about this archetype. What events or personal characteristics led me to choose this archetype? How long has this archetypal pattern been a part of my life? What role has this archetype played for me? Which prominent people have interacted with the aspect of my nature supported by this archetype? What relationship might it have to my personal unfinished business, to those people I haven't forgiven, or the events in the past that I can't let go of, etc.? What myths, fairy tales, or spiritual stories that have meaning for me do I associate with this archetype? Has this archetype appeared in my dreams? Does thinking of this archetype make me feel empowered or disempowered? And then there's also questions more related to your spirituality. For example, what impact has this archetype had on my spirituality? What have I learned about my own shadow aspect through this archetype? Has it caused me to block or forgo change that needs to happen, or has it facilitated that change? What guidance might this archetype have to offer me in the present moment? So yeah, those are the questions that she proposes. I think that's pretty neat. I didn't really use this, at least not at this point in life, because I just literally chose those archetypes yesterday evening. So yeah, and it did take me a while before I felt like I'm actually satisfied with those archetypes, in the sense that I feel that I haven't chosen any archetypes just because they seem attractive to me in any way, but based on how I actually perceive myself. And you know, this is the downside, like you can only choose based on how you perceive yourself, and based on how self-aware you are. So obviously there is gonna be some blind spots, and I do intend to ask a friend of mine to play a game with those archetypes, basically, where she would maybe choose some archetypes that she thinks represent me, and I will see if there are some that maybe I haven't chosen for myself because I'm not aware of something about myself, or perhaps I'm trying to conceal something about myself. You know how it goes. But anyway, the 8 ones that I chose. This is the dilettante, I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure. And this is basically, yeah, me. The light attribute says delights in the arts without having to be a professional, alerts you to the danger of becoming superficial in your pursuits. And then shadow attribute, pretension to much deeper knowledge than you actually possess. So this is basically like this kind of person who tries a fuck ton of things. This is even like shown on the image here. Like she's, you know, holding a pot, painting at the same time, reading a book, cooking, and she looks like she's meditating maybe in the meantime. I don't know. It's like multitasking with your hobbies. So you do have a fuck ton of them, but you never really have this need to become actually good at any of them. And yeah, that's me. And I do, and like I thought a bit about it, obviously not too much in depth, but I thought about it, and I think in this case I'm somewhere, like with most of those really, somewhere in between the light and shadow attribute. I think especially when I was younger, there was more of this shadow attribute present in my life, where I would not think of myself as having much deeper knowledge than I actually have, but presenting myself to others in such a way that they would think that I have much more knowledge than I do in a certain area. So yeah, these days it's not as present anymore because I don't, you know, I'm older, I don't seek validation as much from people around me anymore. But yeah, this is very much a dynamic that is present in my life and has been. And with all those cards, when you choose them, you have to like try to choose the ones that have been present in your life for a long period of time. It's not like just a you know, happened half a year ago because something changed or whatever. You know, it's something that's actually a pretty stable part of you. Then I do have the healer, and I thought about this back and forth, honestly, because I do not see myself as a healer in any way, but at the same time, you know, I am a psychologist, I help people every day, and I also do have a problem with caring for myself. You know, this is the archetype of the wounded healer as well, and I think this really does apply to most people who help others, that the need to help others appears in the first place because you are wounded as a person and you need to want to help others, obviously. So yeah, I think I chose this even though I didn't necessarily want to, but I think it just fucking fits my life and what I represent. And I am at this moment in my life right now where I am trying to pay more attention to healing myself, healing the wounded healer in me, and understanding why I chose to be a healer, to be a psychologist in the first place. And the things that I'm digging out are fucking yeah. They make me think a lot and question my choices a lot at some points. You know, it's not easy, but I think it's necessary work to do. Anyway, the next one is artist. And this kind of ties to the dilettante archetype, but also kind of goes beyond it, because I wouldn't consider myself to be an artist literally. But for example, this says that it's inspiring others to see life symbolically, and I think this is the main part that agrees with me about this archetype, is that the way I make sense of life is through seeing it symbolically. And if I wanted, I could express it through, you know, those many hobbies of mine. And I do it a lot, actually. I am an art therapist, and I do use art a lot in my healing process and in the healing process of others in group settings, for example. So for me, art has this transformational quality to it, and seeing life through a symbolic lens helps me personally a lot. And I know it's not for everybody, but mostly children that I work with, they respond to it really well as well, which is fucking awesome. Yeah, but anyway, let's just move on. Then we have the addict, and I'm not addicted to anything actively at this point in my life, if that makes sense, but I think I do have a lot of qualities in my character that make me prone to addiction. I used to smoke cigarettes, for example. I did have short periods in my life where I definitely drank too much alcohol on a daily basis, especially in crises that I had in my life. So I think if my life went to shit in a lot of areas and I completely lost control over my life, there's a huge possibility that I would try to help myself by using some kind of substance, rather misusing some kind of substance. And that has to do with more than just, you know, being addicted to drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever, but just generally. Yeah, I think I do have some qualities of this archetype in me, and they don't really ever like go away. I think you just have to work on it to actively to keep yourself in check and recognize and confront those addictive behaviors in yourself. I have to stop here and do another part. Okay, so yeah, that's the addict in me. Then there's the virgin, and wow, this was kind of tough to admit to, but yeah, I think this has been present in my life since fucking forever, and it's really important that I work with this archetype in order to understand myself more in the like relationships slash sex department, because I do have a lot to work through from my especially teenage years in regards to this. For the longest period of time as a teenager, I thought of myself as being asexual, and well, later on in my adult years it turned out that I'm not asexual, but this kind of left this I don't want to say stain, but I can't find a better word at this moment in me that I have to work through, because I did have this fear of intimate union, and it was very much connected to, you know, being with wrong people in relationships, stuff like that. So yeah, it definitely influenced how you know, how I work in this area of my life. And yeah, I don't really want to go into too much detail because it's fucking TMI, but I guess you get what I mean. It's just this feeling that I'm kind of above, you know, sex, above those earthly delights, whatever, and I had this kind of perception of myself for like pretty much my whole teenage years. And so yeah, this is definitely a part of me. Then we have the student, which is humility and devotion to knowledge, openness to lifelong learning. And yeah, that's definitely me, but also what's important, I think, is in those shadow attributes, unwillingness to translate knowledge into action. And that's also me, in the sense that it's of course a fear in me that I never feel educated enough. I never feel like I'm ready to, like, for example, pass on my knowledge, you know, from the student transform into the teacher. So I feel like I have to, like, just hoard knowledge, really. And there's never enough. There's never enough. And it's not like I'm not working with this at all and not trying to change it, but I know that this kind of reaction appears in me every time I'm, for example, asked if I would like to take on a new project, you know, like get a side job, for example, as a psychologist who supports people who just experienced death in their family. Like, I just recently got this proposition from somebody, and my like initial second reaction was, yay, that's super great, I want to do it, fuck, that's awesome. And then a moment later comes this this shadow of mine where I'm like, fuck, but I need to do this postgrad first, or I need to take this course first to be able to help those people better, because I don't have the tools, like I don't know enough. And you know, this is the kind of shit that just lingers and prevents me from acting on the knowledge and using the knowledge that I already have, because I feel like I never have enough. So of course I'm very much aware of this, and I try to not to succumb to it, but to do stuff regardless. But yeah, this is a hindrance really, and it is very much present in my life. So yeah, the student. Then I have the mediator, and in light attributes it says gift of negotiating fairness and strategy in personal and professional life, respect for both sides of an argument. And then the shadow attribute is negotiating with an ulterior motive or hidden agenda, either personally or professionally. And yeah, this is as well very much present in my life, especially in the aspect of having respect for both sides of an argument. I feel like I'm the kind of person who's always somewhere in the middle when it comes to, like, I can easily understand both sides in every argument, including like political problems, which some people find to be pretty disturbing sometimes. Because I just had this conversation with a friend not long ago, because I shared that I watch videos from somebody who's obviously like alt-right, and that person was really like surprised, shocked, almost disgusted, I think, with that. But I tried to understand that I'm trying to, like, you know, hear both sides of the political spectrum, not because I agree with them, but because I want to understand how they arrived at this destination, why they have the beliefs that they have, you know. And as well as in discussions with people, when there's like people arguing about something logistic to the politics, I think I could easily be a mediator between a like extremely right person and on the left spectrum as well. So I'm always somewhere in the middle, and I try to basically make people have a respectful conversation, no matter how different they seem to be from each other. So yeah, I'm not gonna go any deeper into this, but I think this explains how I view it more or less. So, and this also has to do with the child orphan, I think, for me. The feeling of, you know, not really belonging into any group, like being somewhere in between, floating really, like this guy on a fucking planet. And so yeah, being somewhere in between and understanding every side, but not really being a part of them, if that makes sense. And then I have the Hermit, but this is the only card that I'm not sure about. And because I think for me this is very much a shadow that's present in my life for not such a long time, because of the circumstances of my life, and because of the kind of work that I do, and because I'm introverted, so it all kind of like makes sense in a way. But I think this is not my natural state, in the sense that it would be like one of those 12 dominant ones. It is definitely present, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the light attributes are seeking solitude to focus intently on inner life and serving personal creativity. And this is very much true. I mentioned in some videos in the past that I'm this kind of person that I do need to have at least one day a week where I'm just alone, so I can regenerate, just get my shit together, and like recharge my batteries to be able to work with people again for the next week. But you know, I'm not, even though I am very much introverted, I don't think I'm really the hermit, you know. I do like community, I do like working with people, first of all, that's why I do what I do. So I don't know, I'm not sure how this, if this fits or if it doesn't. But anyway, the shadow attributes of this one is withdraws from society out of fear of negative judgments of others and refusing to help those in need. This does not really fit me at all, because those are not my problems, but I think... where was it? Yeah, this is Shadow Hermit manifests as intolerance, loathing, or fear of others, or refusal to help those in need. So, for me, the shadow aspect that suits me, I think, is the not the intolerance, but because I'm a very tolerant person, and as I said, I understand each side at all times, but the loathing, sometimes when I'm really exhausted with people, so when I really need this, I would often go into this mode where, yeah, into this mode of loathing, just feeling like, fuck, people are so shit, I don't want to have like anything to do with them, like I'm sick of them, you know. It's especially like prominent when I'm, as I said, very tired of working with people, and I go into this nihilistic state of mind. So that's the shadow that I encounter. I'm not sure if this archetype should be in here, but I feel like it fits me the most at this moment in time anyway. So I'm just gonna keep it. But what I've been like swapping back and forth was the hermit, the hero slash heroine, and the rescuer, because those three, like I wasn't sure which one to choose. When it comes to the hero slash heroine, it's passion for a journey or of personal empowerment, and the shadow is escapism and false sense of heroism. I think like I was very much the hero kind of person as a child and as a teenager, but this is not really present in my life anymore. So at one hand, this is the kind of archetype that was present in my life for a really long time, but I don't relate to it anymore at all at this moment. And maybe that's because it's got swapped with this, because I'm working with people so much, and I am on this personal empowerment journey, and it is very important to me, and it's always been my kind of my priority in life. But I just kind of take this as a given, you know. I don't know how to explain this properly. It's like very much in the background, and I'm not like acting the hero or the heroine in my life actively, you know what I mean? I'm just not this kind of person. And then the rescuer, this is also very much connected to my childhood and my teenage years, and I feel like it kind of got replaced with this maybe more mature version of it, the healer, and partially the mediator as well. I feel like those are actually present, and this was present in my childhood, which is providing strength and support to others in crisis, and acts out of love with no expectation of reward. And then the shadow assumes that the rescued will reciprocate and keeps the rescued one needy. Especially as a teen, I was this kind of person that everybody would come to me for help in crisis, with problems, with helping, figuring shit out, stuff like this. And I felt this gave me this sense of being important, you know. So it wasn't exactly acting out of love and expecting no reward, because it gave me an internal reward or of feeling important in people's lives. But that's about people like from the outside, friends, people I know, etc. But I very much played this dynamic in my family, because I felt like if I didn't like help everybody sort their shit out, then the family is just gonna fucking explode, you know? So I shouldn't have really played this role or been forced to play this dynamic in the family, but that's just how shit goes sometimes. And what's it called in English? I don't know. It's about those triangles where sometimes two parents like kind of pull their child into that dynamic, and the boundaries are very much you know, not as they should be. So I think this plays into that a lot, but it's not very present. It's not at all present in my life at this moment. So yeah, and then there's some cards that I just chose because they just caught my attention in one way or another. Exorcist, especially with the fear of facing your own demons. As a teenager and a child, I was very... I had a lot of fears, and a lot of them were of actual demons or like evil entities that I sometimes saw or encountered, whatever. I had a very strange childhood in this regard, at least. So yeah, this definitely has something to do with me, but it's definitely not dominant. I just recognize it, I guess, in my life. Then we have the Seeker, and initially I chose the Seeker instead of the Student, but I think the Student fits better, because the Seeker is thirst for wisdom and truth wherever they are, and the Shadow is inability to commit to a path once found. So this is not exactly me, because as I said, I just have a problem not with committing to a path. I wouldn't want to commit to one path in the first place, but I have a problem on acting or using the knowledge that I have, the wisdom that I already possess, if that makes sense. So yeah, I do recognize this as well, but it's not me exactly. And then the Detective, I chose this. I don't really like resonate with those descriptions, but there is a quality to me that definitely has something to do with this. I'm not gonna elaborate. The Liberator. Yeah, I don't think I want to elaborate on this either, but this also, as I said, I feel was more present in my life in my teenage years again. Yeah. Shapeshifter. Ability to see potential in everything. Yeah, this is definitely a quality that's kind of present in my life, but definitely not dominant. I feel like maybe it would be more present in my life if I found myself in a really good spot where I feel really accomplished in a lot of ways, which I don't at this moment. So yeah, it is what it is. But I definitely do like feel a familiarity. Then the Teacher. I already do teach a lot in my job anyway, but this is not something that I associate with myself, if that makes sense. And that's also has to do with the Student again, and the fact that I just never feel ready. So I feel like maybe at some point in my life it will change from the Student to the Teacher. At this moment in my life I just don't feel like this is something that I feel I am in any way. And then the Companion, and this is interesting because yeah, I have to dig into this. It's not, again, it's nothing dominant in my life, but I do have this tendency, and I had those moments where I put those traits, loyalty, tenacity and unselfishness, over my own well-being. And this is it, the loss of personal identity, or maybe not keeping my boundaries strong enough in a friendship, so I get taken advantage of, not because somebody wants to really take advantage of me, but because I almost tell them to do so, if that makes sense. So this is something that I had to do a lot of work around in my past, so it's not anything dominant, but again, I do recognize this as a pattern that was present in my life at some point. And the rescuer I already talked about, and the hero, yeah, so that's it. So, wow, my throat really hurts. I talked a lot. So I just thought it would be fun to share this with you guys. Let me know if you tried this before, those of you who have those cards. And let me know, those of you who read the Sacred Contracts book, if it's worth it, or if it just, you know, focusing on the reincarnation and, you know, past lives and astrology. Because if so, then that's not something I'm interested in really, but at the same time I'm kind of interested to just find out more about what Caroline thinks about those things, just because out of curiosity, not because I want to incorporate it into my work or whatever. So let me know, okay, what you guys think about it, if you have more information or if you tried this. I would be super grateful for that. So anyway, thanks for watching and see you guys soon. Bye!